Они отказались от этого. Где гарантии, что они и дальше не будут отказываться от каких-то других договоренностей? Но и в этих условиях мы никогда не отказывались от ведения переговоров. Уважаемые друзья, не мы, а руководство Украины объявило о том, что оно не будет вести никаких переговоров. Более того, действующий президент Украины подписал соответствующий декрет, запрещающий вести эти переговоры. Поэтому я понимаю вашу озабоченность, разделяю ее, и, безусловно, мы готовы рассмотреть любые ваши предложения, но мы не отказывались от переговоров. Ну как? Отказалась украинская сторона. И декрет даже издали. Ну чего же от нас хотят?
This is my video update from Larnaca, Cyprus on this Sunday midday. Let's talk about some news. Right now I am at the Hala Sultan Tekke Mosque, which sits right on the banks of the Larnaca Salt Lake. And this is a must-see if you come to Larnaca. This is a place that you have to come and visit, but just make sure that you're covered. And I don't think you can film inside the mosque. We'll check it out and see if I can get a little bit of the inside. At least film a little bit. We'll ask the person at the door what we can record, if he'll let us just record a bit. So let's talk about some news while we're here. And what we'll do is we'll go a little bit inside, and then we'll walk around to the Salt Lake and film from the opposite angle. But let's talk about some news. Let's talk about the African delegation that arrived in Russia, bringing with them the 9-point peace plan. I believe it's a 9-point peace plan. U.S. aid. The UN. The Hala Sultan Tekke Mosque. So the African delegation, they arrived in Russia. They brought with them their peace plan. They met with Russian President Vladimir Putin and all of the Kremlin officials, Lavrov, Peskov, and the feeling, the overall vibe that you got from the meeting was one of optimism, I would say. Maybe not optimism is the right word. They were happy to see each other. Let's just say that, given everything that the delegation went through on their trip to Poland, on their trip to Kiev through Poland, and everything that they went through there, I think that the delegation was relieved and just happy to be with friends, and it showed. It showed in the way that they greeted each other. Putin greeted the leaders of the delegation. It was obvious that they were happy to be amongst friends. But Zelensky, when they were in Kiev, he dismissed the peace plan. He said outright that unless Crimea is captured by the Ukraine military, well, then there's no reason to bring any type of peace plan to Ukraine. That was pretty much what Zelensky told the delegation. The Russian officials were willing to sit and listen to the 9-point peace plan. They said it's actually a very good peace plan. They're open to all kinds of dialogues. They thanked the African delegation for arriving to Russia and bringing the peace plan. And they were very cordial and welcoming and diplomatic. They were very diplomatic, which is what you would expect from the Russian officials and the Russian foreign ministry. But the big news from the meetings between Putin and the delegation from Africa was Putin's showing his revelation of the March peace agreement, the March-April peace agreement that Russia made with Kiev. And this was the peace agreement that they negotiated in Turkey. And Putin, he actually showed the agreement. He actually brought with him receipts. As all the cool kids say, he brought with him receipts, and he said, "Look, we've tried on multiple occasions to find a peace agreement with Ukraine and the collective West. Here's the one that they actually signed and initialed in Turkey, which basically said that Russia would withdraw its troops from Kiev and the surrounding areas. Ukraine would recognize Crimea and Donbass, Lugansk, and it was very detailed. They even had the amount of troops that the Ukraine forces would have going forward. Russia said that Ukraine would enshrine in its constitution neutrality, and it would have 85,000 troops, military, in Ukraine. Ukraine was looking for 250,000 troops. Russia said 15,000 National Guards. Ukraine said more. They had the amount of weapons, tanks, artilleries that the Ukraine military would have. I mean, it was all there. It was all very detailed in this peace agreement. And Boris Johnson flew to Kiev, and the Ukraine officials, the Zelensky regime, they took that peace agreement, they tore it up, and they threw it in the trash can. So Putin said that the document titled "The Treaty on the Permanent Neutrality and Security Guarantees for Ukraine" had been signed by the Ukrainian delegation. He said the draft stipulates that Ukraine must enshrine permanent neutrality in its constitution. Russia, the US, Britain, and China and France were listed as guarantors. The agreement also had an addendum to the draft, also shown by Putin. It outlined both Russian and Ukrainian proposals regarding the size of Ukraine's standing army during peacetime, as well as its equipment. Moscow proposed to cap the number of military personnel at 85,000 and the number of the National Guard members at 15,000. Kiev, meanwhile, proposed that its armed forces have up to 250,000 troops. Moscow suggested that Ukraine should be allowed to have 342 tanks, 1,029 armored vehicles, 96 multiple rocket launchers, 50 combat aircraft, and 52 auxiliary aircraft. Kiev, meanwhile, was in favor of having 800 tanks, 2,400 armored vehicles, 600 multiple rocket launchers, 74 combat aircraft, and 86 auxiliary aircraft. The negotiations broke down in the spring of 2022. Putin said that Ukraine was responsible for sabotaging the negotiations, and I quote, "After we pulled our troops away from Kiev, as we had promised to do, the Kiev authorities had tossed their commitments into the dustbin of history," he said. "They abandoned everything. Where are the guarantees that they will not walk away from agreements in the future?" Putin said, "However, even under such circumstances, we have never refused to conduct negotiations." And he showed the agreement, like he actually showed. What's the name of the agreement again? He actually held up the permanent neutrality and security guarantees agreement that they worked out in Turkey, with Turkey mediating. Now, keep in mind, we've had the former Israeli prime minister as well say that they were close to some sort of an agreement, a ceasefire, and in that instance, the Israeli prime minister said that the U.S. sabotaged it. The Biden White House told Ukraine to pull out of those negotiations. I believe the Israeli prime minister says something like they had 7 or 8 times. They went through it like 7 or 8 times to get to an agreement, and then at the end of the day, sabotage. And then you had the meeting in Turkey. Everything was signed. Everything was initialed. Putin held up the document. Ukraine was going to enshrine its neutrality in its constitution. What have I been saying on many videos over the last year and a half? I've been saying that the first thing, the only and first thing that Ukraine had to do in order to either prevent the conflict or to get Russia to pull back, especially in the first month of the special military operation, all they had to do was to put in their constitution that they would be neutral. That is it. Was it that difficult to do? I mean, is that such a big ask to say you're going to be neutral? We're going to be neutral. We're going to act as a bridge between the East and the West. We're going to act as a bridge between Europe and Russia. We're going to trade with Europe and we're going to trade with Russia. We're going to get the best of both worlds. I mean, what was the issue? What was the problem? Anyway, Putin had it there. It's all very detailed, he said. The amount of troops, the amount of tanks, artillery, aircraft, everything. Everything was there in detail, spelled out, initialed, signed, and then Boris came to town. Boris flew to Kiev, and he told them, no way. And of course, Boris promised the Zelensky regime money and weapons. That's exactly what happened. He promised them money and weapons, and you know what else he probably promised Zelensky? This is my guess. He promised Zelensky victory. He promised Zelensky that he would be the man that marched into Moscow and sat at the throne of the Kremlin. It would be Zelensky, and Zelensky in his actor mode said, wow, that would be awesome. And he said, sure. And of course, a lot of money. He was offered a lot of money. And how could Zelensky resist? How could he say no to that? That's what they promised Zelensky. They promised a quick victory. Sanctions, the Russian economy would sink. You would march into Moscow, and Boris told Zelensky, he said, you would be the man. Like you would go down in the history books. That's my guess. And that was it. That was it. And so, can we finally stop with the nonsense of the siege of Kiev? That's why whenever I say the siege of Kiev, whenever I talk about the siege of Kiev, I'm always like, the siege of Kiev. You know, the whole propaganda narrative around Russia. Russia tried to capture Kiev, but the Ukraine military, they destroyed the Russian forces and pushed them back to Donbass. Give me a break. Give me a break. What happened in the first month was actually quite clever by the Russian military, and a risk. I'm not saying that the Russians did not suffer losses. They put their military at risk doing what they did in the first month. But in the first month, what were their goals? Twofold. To get Zelensky to the negotiating table, which worked, and as a type of shaping operation, so that in case things didn't work out, they bought themselves enough time to prepare the battlefield in Donbass. Unfortunately, we got the second outcome, which is the battlefield in Donbass. But Putin almost pulled it off at a great cost to the Russian military, at a great sacrifice to the Russian military. Putin almost got the peace deal within the first month. But 40,000 troops was never meant to take over a city of 3 million people. That wasn't the goal of it. But what the collective West did, as they always do, is they manipulated the narrative. They lied about the narrative, and then they came out with the siege of Kiev, right? The siege of Kiev. And on that siege of Kiev, they built up momentum for constant and continuous escalation. On that lie, they built up all the escalation that followed. So Russia, the Russian president, he's sitting there with the African delegation, right? Delegates from Africa, and this whole thing was deliberate. You know, him showing the agreement while the leaders of Africa were in Russia was planned. It was deliberate. The Kremlin, they know what they're doing. This wasn't like, I don't think it was spontaneous. I don't think Putin said, you know, let me grab the agreement and just let me show it. I think this was a message that they want to give out, not only to the collective West, but to the entire world, in my opinion. Yeah, I don't think I'll be able to film in here, but the message was, look, here's Russia, here's the global South, here are the African representatives, here's multipolarity, here it is at this table, right? Russia, Africa, the global South, multipolarity is represented at this table right now. And let's walk in. And here we are showing you an agreement, another agreement that the collective West backed out of, another one. There was not one more inch east, the NATO agreement, and Bush and Baker, and you know, we're not going to move one more inch east. Don't worry about it. There's that. There's the Minsk 1. There's the Minsk 2. And then you had this agreement as well, which once again, they didn't honor. And here's Putin and the leaders of the African nations. They're saying, you know, how many times are we going to put up with broken agreements and broken promises? How many times do we have to put up with this stuff? I mean, there was a lot of symbolism there. And I think everyone knew exactly the point that Putin was making as he was sitting at a table with all the leaders from the African nations. Another agreement that they failed to honor, another one. But, you know, here we all are trying to find peace, even though they've broken agreement after agreement after agreement. So let's film a little bit inside, whatever we can, and then we'll walk around and we'll talk about some more news. So let's just film a little bit here. I think I can film up to here. Okay, let's walk around and get to the lake, to the Salt Lake, and you can see the mosque from the other side. So Peskov, he had some interesting statements as well. He made some interesting statements yesterday as well, and very dusty. And he said that, look, we've effectively demilitarized Ukraine. He said the goals of the special military operation have essentially been completed, and we've demilitarized the Ukraine military, but what we have now is a NATO proxy, and so we're going to have to demilitarize them as well. And I think that says a lot as to where this is heading, and it is a warning. to NATO and the collective West that if you continue to escalate, we're going to continue to escalate back. And we always have, as Obama once said about Russia in Ukraine. He said that Russia has escalatory dominance. Obama's words, not Russia's words. And Peskov is warning the collective West. We've already demilitarized the Ukraine military with Ukrainian weapons. Now we're demilitarizing another army, this time with NATO weapons. Let's not get to the point where Russia has to demilitarize NATO, a NATO army with NATO weapons. That's essentially the warning that Peskov is making. So that was the statement from the Kremlin spokesman. He said Ukraine was highly militarized when the conflict began. This is what he told RT Arabic. And as Putin said yesterday, one of the goals was demilitarization of Ukraine. De facto, this goal has been achieved. Peskov argued that Ukraine has been using its own weapons less and less and has gradually switched to using weapons supplied by US-led NATO bloc. The spokesman added that military aid to Kiev makes Western countries party to the conflict and makes the situation in Europe more tense and unpredictable. All this motivates Russia to take more decisive measures to ensure the safety of the people in Donbass and the safety of the Russian Federation, Peskov said. All of this motivates Russia. It motivates Russia. Wow. So Bidenopolis, Greece's favorite son, he had a meeting with Stoltenberg in D.C. a couple of days ago, and what at first was floated out there was to create a simplified type of fast track for Ukraine to enter NATO. And a lot of people thought that this was going to be what Biden would agree to, a NATO fast track for for Ukraine, to create a NATO fast track for Ukraine. And this would have been another huge escalation. But Biden came out with statements yesterday, and he said that there is going to be no fast track for Ukraine. He said Ukraine will not have an easy entry into the US-led NATO alliance and will be required to meet the same standards as any other member of the bloc. Quote, they've got to meet the same standards, so we're not going to make it easy, Biden told reporters near Washington on Sunday. So the US president seems to be going back and forth on Ukraine entering NATO and what's going to be required of Ukraine to enter NATO. We've had times where it's been a fast track, and we have had times when he has said it's not going to be a fast track. Now he is on record saying it's not going to be a fast track. In a week or two, he could change his mind and say it's going to be a fast track. Something is telling me that the huge failed counteroffensive is giving the Biden White House pause in its plan to offer Ukraine NATO membership. What purpose does it serve? What purpose would it serve to put Ukraine into NATO when the more this goes on, the more Ukraine continues to falter and to fail? I think the collective West is starting to understand that this is not a good situation for them, and perhaps putting Ukraine into NATO is not going to to be the solution to what they want to do to Russia. Even though Ukraine and NATO is not going to make any difference. Russia is not going to stop the goals of their special military operation just because Ukraine is fast-tracked into NATO. And NATO entering the conflict is not going to change the trajectory and the outcome of this conflict. At least you hope that there are some people in the collective West that have understood this. Biden, he's flip-flopping back and forth. Yesterday was a terrible day for the Ukraine military. They launched a huge assault in the Zaporozhye direction, and I think in the next couple of days you're going to be seeing a lot of imagery of a lot of Ukrainian leopards destroyed by the Russian military, and the loss of life, from what I've read, was horrific on the side of Ukraine. Horrific. This is coming from a lot of Telegram channels and analysts who are following the details of this conflict. Oh. So it was a horrible day yesterday for the Ukraine military, and all of these losses are incurred, and the gains are zero to minimal. I think even the Estonian, an Estonian military commander, I think even came out and he had to admit that Ukraine has lost 10% of everything the collective West has given them. And when you have a NATO commander saying 10%, like openly admitting that they've lost 10% of everything that NATO has given them, bump that up to 20%. You even have collective West media. Let me pull up some articles here. I think Sky News. Even Sky News, they ran an article titled, Ukraine Counteroffensive Losing Momentum Against Russian Fortifications. You know that when collective West media has to run articles like this, that things are going very, very bad for the Zelensky regime. Like, very bad. German finance minister Christian Lindner, he told Die Welt that Germany has no more money for all of these adventures and no more money to pour into the European Union. Beautiful, isn't it? Beautiful. He said that in view of the necessary cuts in our national budget, we are currently unable to make any additional contributions to the budget of the European Union, Lindner told reporters in Brussels, adding that other member states have come to the same realization. Lindner explained that the EU has maxed out its long-term budget through 2027, largely as a result of the bloc's lavish aid packages to Ukraine. According to the latest figures from Brussels, the EU has given Kiev 72 billion euros in economic, military, and humanitarian aid since Russia's military operation in Ukraine began last February. Despite this unprecedented outflow draining its coffers, the European Commission is reportedly readying an additional 72 billion financial aid package to keep the Ukrainian economy limping along to 2027. According to Lindner, the Commission will release a report next week asking member states for more money to cover the bill. In other words, what Lindner is saying is Germany is tapped out. The Commission wants to send another 72 billion to Ukraine. No one knows where that 72 billion will go. I imagine that Zelensky's going to buy some more homes. 72 billion, I can buy many, many homes with 72 billion. Thank you very much, Ursula. 72 billion is going to disappear. And Germany is saying, you know what? It's time for other EU member states to start putting the money into this Zelensky pot. Germany is running out, so other countries have to pay for this Ukraine project. Let's see. Should we do a clown world? Before we do a clown world, there's some interesting videos of journalists in Mariupol who are in Mariupol taking a look at the progress being made in Mariupol, and the journalists are just stunned at the progress being made in Mariupol, the building, the construction, the life that city is now taking on. It's getting back to a normal life after the devastation of everything that happened in Mariupol. And the journalists are stunned at the progress that Russia has been making in rebuilding Mariupol. And it's turning out to be a beautiful city again, an even more beautiful city. And there's going to be elections in the 4 new regions of the Russian Federation: Donetsk, Lugansk, Kherson, and Zaporozhye on September 10th. So Russia has announced new elections in the region, and a whole lot of construction is being planned in these regions, and economic projects are being put into place in these regions. So I ask everyone that's watching this video, using logic, would Russia be rebuilding Mariupol, pouring in all this money to rebuild Mariupol? Would they be having elections in September? Would they be pouring all this money into these regions, Zaporozhye, Kherson, Lugansk, Donetsk? Would they be doing all of this if they believed that in the next 2-3 weeks, Ukraine would be controlling these regions? No, of course not. Of course not. So a clown world. Let's see here. We had these, I don't know, these eco activists. I don't even know what they are. These stop the oil activists. They poured a whole bunch of paint on a Monet painting, and now the people that are looking after this painting at the museum, I forgot which museum it was at, but I think the eco activists were Swedish eco activists or something like that, and the museum is actually concerned as to whether they're going to be able to preserve and to save this masterpiece from Monet. What a shame. What a shame. They are destroying beauty. These activists destroy beauty. Go and throw paint at the yacht of Bezos or Gates or DiCaprio. I mean, why do you have to destroy beautiful art? I think we all know why they're destroying beautiful art: because they hate beauty. They hate creation. They hate creativity. So that's one clown world. Got another clown world here, which is coming from The Guardian. They ran an article. I think I saved it. I hope I saved it. Give me 1 sec. Give me 1 second to see if I saved this article from The Guardian. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And The Guardian, they ran an article: Western firms snub Russian Davos as its prestige evaporates. Yes. The St. Petersburg International Forum, its prestige is evaporating because you only had 16, 17, 18,000 delegates from 130 countries attending the forum. Yeah, what a failure that forum was. Oh boy. The amount of coping is ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And Let me see if I have one more. Clown World. I don't think I have anything else here. But, oh, yes, I do. Yes, I do. This comes from the Australian publication Financial Review, and they ran an article with the title, Meet Ukraine's Possibly Dead Spy Master, Putin's Enemy Number One. And they're talking here about Ukraine Intel Chief Budanov, who is possibly dead, but he's Putin's number one enemy. There are reports, and they're picking up now, they're picking up a lot of momentum, saying that Budanov is in Berlin, he's at a hospital, and these reports are coming from Germany, by the way. He's at a hospital in Berlin. He's either in critical condition or he's toast. For lack of a better word. Those are the reports coming out of a lot of German publications and independent media. And like I said, these reports are picking up momentum. But what a title from this publication, Financial Review. Meet Ukraine's possibly dead spy master, Putin's enemy number one. All right, everybody, that is the video, theduran.locals.com. We are on ODYSEE, Rumble, Rockfin, Telegram, and BitChute. Go to the Duran shop, 10% off. Use the code GOODDAY, and definitely join us on theduran.locals.com, where the entire community shares incredible articles and news, and you get Alexander's exclusive live streams, and it's just a great place to be. So I will end the video there, and if you want to stick around with me for 2-3 minutes, I'll give a very quick update on what I know about what's going on with Gonzalo. I don't know much. I can tell you this from a lot of the interactions that people have had with the U.S. State Department. It seems that the U.S. State Department is not too concerned with what's happening with Gonzalo. At least that's the vibe that I got when reading the replies from U.S. representatives. They basically were just saying that they support Ukraine for as long as it takes, and a lot of the representatives, they didn't even want to mention Gonzalo. They didn't even mention Gonzalo in the correspondence that they would have with people that wrote to them. So it looks like the U.S. State Department is not interested at all, but that's the bad news. I guess the good news, if you can call it that, is that there have been some viewers, community members who have contacted the embassy in Chile, which is the embassy, I believe it's in Poland, where the Chile embassy is located, that handles Ukraine, as well as the Chilean Foreign Ministry. And they have said that they're working very hard to secure Gonzalo's release or his deportation. And from what I understand, he does have, or he has been appointed, a Ukrainian lawyer. And the Chilean embassy, the Chilean Foreign Ministry, is working to secure some sort of deal with Gonzalo. So it looks like the Chilean Foreign Ministry is working hard. It looks like the U.S. State Department is not. So that's the update that I have there. All right, everybody. Take care.